No cities, no kings, no written laws. In the age before civilization, survival was brutal, and power wasn't always taken with a spear. Sometimes, the most dangerous weapon you could wield was your own body. In the flicker of firelight, alliances were forged, leaders were toppled, and a single night could change the fate of an entire tribe. The night was cold enough to bite through fur and skin. A small tribe huddled around the fire, its light flickering against the rough walls of the cave. Beyond the shadows, the forest whispered with unseen predators, the kind that could take a man in seconds. But inside, another kind of predator moved, not with claws, not with teeth. With a glance dot in the Stone Age, survival wasn't only about hunting mammoths or finding shelter from the storm. It was also about the quiet deals struck between bodies. A man with strong arms and a successful hunt might share his kill with more than just his bloodkin. A woman, quick-witted and graceful, might find her way into the protection of the best hunter, even if he already had a mate. To trade your body was not shameful. It was smart. The difference between eating well or going hungry, between sleeping safely or being left on the edge of camp where wolves could sniff you out. Archaeologists have found traces of such arrangements. In ancient burial sites, women buried alongside tools or jewelry, their value in the tribe clearly recognized. These were not mere gifts. They were the echoes of bargains struck in the feral RGHT. Here. Desire was not just a private thing, it was a public currency, a way to buy survival, respect, and even power. And in this world, everyone knew, sometimes the most dangerous weapon you could carry was yourself. The alliance began with a single piece of meat. A young hunter, his hands still red from the kill, dropped the haunch of deer beside her. No words, just a nod, the kind that meant more than a feast. In the Stone Age, a gift like this was never free. It was a signal, an opening move. Around them, the rest of the tribe pretended not to watch, but every glance was calculated. Sharing. Food was survival, but sharing it with her could shift the balance of camp politics. If she accepted, she wouldn't just gain a meal, she'd gain his shadow at her side, his spear between her and the dangers that prowled in the dark. Anthropologists studying modern-day hunter-gatherer tribes have observed similar exchanges. The Hadza of Tanzania, for example, still see food sharing as a key part of courtship and alliance building. In these systems, the body is part of the bargain, not just for reproduction, but for loyalty, shelter, and resources. In prehistoric times, such bonds could be temporary or last a lifetime, but they were rarely based on love alone. They were strategic. Each choice of partner was a calculation. Who could keep you fed, safe, and positioned well within the fragile web of tribal power. And under the flicker of firelight, with the smell of blood and smoke in the air, she made her choice, one that could change her fate for seasons to come. Her choice didn't go unnoticed. Across the fire, another woman, older, with eyes like flint, tightened her grip on the child in her lap. The hunter had once brought meat to her fire. Now the warmth was gone, replaced by the cold edge of competition. In the Stone Age, a shift like this could mean more than jealousy. It could mean hunger and danger. Every tribe had its quiet hierarchy, and sex was one of its unspoken laws. A favored partner could secure better sleeping spots, more food, and the subtle protection of those who followed the dominant hunters. But the opposite was also true. Lose your place, and you might find yourself at the edges of the group, where the wind was colder the food scarcer, and the threats closer. Men weren't immune to these politics either. The young hunter's choice put him at odds with rivals. Another man, stronger but slower, had been watching too. For him, the woman was more than a mate. She was an alliance, a gateway to influence over her family and their resources. The flames threw shadows that danced on the cave walls, flickering like omens. Behind every smile was calculation. Behind every glance, a test of loyalty. Desire wasn't a private matter here. It was a weapon, and once drawn, it could not be easily sheathed in this world. Intimacy could raise you to power, or cast you into the dark. The hunt had been good. Fresh meat hung from wooden stakes, blood pooling into the dirt. The tribe was fed, and the fire burned bright. But as night fell, the real negotiations began, not with words, but with glances, touches, and quiet invitations. To share the warmth of a sleeping mat. In the harsh world before civilization, sex was never just about desire. It could be a lifeline. Choosing the right partner could mean safety from predators, a steady share of meat, or allies in a dispute. A woman might seek out the strongest hunter, not only for his strength, but for the circle of loyal warriors around him. A man might align himself with a woman whose kin controlled a vital water source, gaining access and influence through her. Sometimes, these bonds weren't exclusive. A woman could maintain ties with two hunters from rival groups, ensuring that, if one fell in the hunt, she would still be protected. A man could take multiple lovers across kin groups, weaving a web of alliances that would make it dangerous for anyone to move against him. Around the fire, smiles hid intentions. A shared drink of fermented fruit, a touch to the wrist, a place offered near the fire. Each was a move in a silent game. In this world, power could be traded in meat, in shelter, or in the heat between two bodies. The tribe's leader didn't always hold power because of his hunting skill or his ability to win battles. Sometimes his dominance rested on the bonds forged in the dark bonds that reached far beyond his own mat. A clever hunter could use intimacy like a spear aimed not at an animal, but at the heart of the tribe's politics. By sharing his bed with the sister of a rival, he could soften hostility. By taking the leader's daughter as a mate, he could secure a path toward leadership himself. Women, too, were far from powerless. A well-respected healer might take lovers from several kin groups, binding them all to her through loyalty and gratitude. When tensions rose, those lovers could serve as her messengers, defenders, or even spies. These arrangements often blurred the lines between affection and strategy. A touch could mean love, or it could mean survival. A night together could be a moment of passion, or a calculated investment in future protection. But when the balance shifted, when someone's influence grew too fast, others noticed alliances built in the warmth of the fire could just as easily ignite resentment in the cold light of day. The power of the body wasn't just physical, it was political currency. And in a world where the wrong alliance could get you killed, every decision about whom to trust and whom to touch carried weight. When alliances were built on intimacy, the stakes were never small. One whispered accusation of betrayal, whether true or not, could set the tribe aflame. Imagine two hunters, both bound to the same woman in secret. One night, she shares food with one and not the other. That small act, barely noticed by outsiders, could spark a silent war. Jealousy turned to suspicion, suspicion to tension, and tension to violence. In some tribes, these tensions played out in the open. A man might challenge another not over land or meat, but over the right to claim a partner. Such duels weren't only about romance, they were declarations of dominance, proof of who held more sway over the tribe's hearts and loyalties. Other times, these power struggles were far more subtle. A leader might deliberately pair himself with the most desired woman in the group, not only to enjoy her company, but to remind others that he controlled access to her. Every shared glance, every public gesture became part of the performance of power. This was politics stripped bare, not speeches or votes, but bodies and emotions tangled in a web of survival. To thrive in such a world meant understanding that desire wasn't just personal, it was a weapon. And like all weapons in the Stone Age, it could protect or it could destroy. The same intimacy that could unite a tribe could just as easily rip it apart. Desire was a fire. It gave warmth, but it also burned in the close quarters of prehistoric life. Secrets were almost impossible to keep. A stolen glance, a shared touch, a missing hunter from camp. These things didn't go unnoticed, and when intimacy crossed the lines of loyalty, it could unleash storms more dangerous than any predator. Jealousy wasn't just an emotion, it was a survival instinct. Losing a partner could mean losing food, protection, and influence. For a rival, seducing someone's mate wasn't only about lust, it was a direct challenge to their standing in the group. Sometimes, these challenges ended quietly. A man withdrawing from a hunting party, a woman finding her share of food mysteriously smaller. But often, they ended in blood. Archaeologists have found Stone Age skeletons with blunt force injuries and fractured skulls, buried hastily, sometimes far from the main group. Theories suggest these could have been victims of such personal rivalries, the casualties of love tangled with power. In this world, every desire carried risk. To want someone was to step onto a battlefield where the weapons were not just spears, but secrets, alliances, and betrayals. When desire clashed with survival, tribes could split like dry wood under a stone axe. Imagine a small band of people bound together by necessity. Food was scarce, winter winds cut deep, and every able body mattered. Yet, one whispered affair could shatter that fragile balance. Among some hunter-gatherer groups, still studied today, men have been known to form lifelong alliances with their hunting partners, bonds that are as critical as marriage. But in the Stone Age, if one man slept with his hunting ally's mate, that alliance could turn into a vendetta. A broken partnership meant fewer successful hunts, which could doom the entire group. It wasn't always about men fighting over women. Sometimes, women formed coalitions to exile a rival from the camp, accusing her of betrayal or dangerous behavior. In a world where shelter was communal and food was shared, being cast out was a near-death sentence. These conflicts often bled into politics. A jealous leader could manipulate the tribe's perception, framing a rival as untrustworthy, or worse, as cursed. In societies steeped in superstition, such a mark could be fatal without a single blow struck. Evidence from early settlements shows signs of sudden desertion. Whole camps abandoned. Perhaps the trigger wasn't drought or predators, but the slow poisoning of trust from within. In a world where intimacy could both unite and destroy, survival meant mastering the art of balance. Men and women learned often the hard way. That open aggression was rarely the safest path. Instead, they turned to subtler strategies. A skilled hunter might avoid direct confrontation with a jealous rival, instead offering public gifts of food to the entire camp. This act wasn't just generosity, it was reputation building. a reminder to the group of his value. By making himself indispensable, he reduced the risk of exile or attack. Women, too, wielded quiet power. Some would align themselves with older, influential matriarchs who could shield them from younger rivals. Others brokered peace between feuding men, using charm and diplomacy to prevent violence. The most astute learned to keep personal relationships ambiguous, ensuring no single partner could claim ownership or spark a feud. Anthropologists, studying present-day tribal societies, note a recurring pattern. Those who navigated sexual politics with the most skill often rose to positions of influence. Their authority wasn't rooted in brute force, but in the trust, or at least the cautious respect, they commanded. The lesson was as old as the first fire. Survival wasn't just about hunting the mammoth or braving the cold. It was about knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to turn desire into an alliance rather than a weapon. In the shadows of the Stone Age, sex was never just about desire. It was currency, weapon, and shield. Those who mastered its power could secure food, allies, and safety, while those who misjudged it could lose everything. This hidden battlefield shaped our ancestors just as much as the hunt or the fire. And maybe, in some ways, it still shapes us today. So, if you were there, would you risk it all for passion or play the long game for survival? Subscribe and join me as we uncover more secrets buried deep in our untold past.